Hey everybody, so in this episode try to tell the story about my prop shaft. This was a bit of I guess a blessing and a disappointment. I spent some considerable amount of time over the winter trying to basically straighten it. The previous owner had obviously hit something because my standoff support that holds the cutlass bearing was actually twisted. So I untwisted that in 1 year, but I never got the prop shaft straightened. So I decided to pull the prop shaft and I tried to straighten it over the winter time. And I rolled it back and forth. I looked at it and I says, okay, it's close. I'm going to give it a try. And I gave it a try, and there was just too much knocking. I second guessed myself in the summer at the beginning of the season, and I said, you know what? If I don't get this fixed, how am I going to go and motor 200 miles down the Erie Canal, or who knows what I need to motor? And basically what it worked out to be is I got the shaft straightened in the middle, but I couldn't get the ends straightened. So I ended up bringing it to a machine shop. I had to haul out in the middle of the season. I lost probably about 2 months worth of time, start to finish on this, and it took a machine shop who did an amazing job. They built me a new one from scratch. Chris over at Kitech Machine was a very knowledgeable guy. So I finally got it in, and then we got it tested out here at the in the end of the season. So I was able to get the boat prepared well enough now to do my journey, but unfortunately I lost a good portion of this season out of the water. But in the middle of that, I did take a trip out through the Grand Canyon, and so that was kind of fun. Took the family out west while we were waiting for the prop shaft to get made. And so this is the story. Bought this boat with very little. Had no working engine, no instruments, and I gutted it. I pulled the engine out, and then I decided to go electric. So I put an electric motor in, and had a whole learning curve about that. So I learned about batteries and charging systems and wiring and house banks, all the different solar panel and monitoring systems. And that's what this channel is about. It's about sharing the knowledge that I learned, documenting my journey as I retrofitted this boat. I'm looking forward to next year. Next year I'm going to be taking the boat out to the coast and to the ocean, and I'm looking forward to that. So hopefully you can follow along and join me. Prop looks pretty good. I've got 3 solid fingers in here in between the hull, so that's at least 2.5 inches, 3 inches, I'd say. My finger widths. It's looking good. Sits on there nicely. It's tapered. There's an inset fill, basically a spacer. So I've got a new one, and it looks great. These pumps have a reservoir, and you take the little cap off. Let's see if I can get in there. Got a light, David? So you can see on the top, there's those little cap holes. So basically you take them out and then you run it, and you slowly get rid of the airlock that way. So these pumps work pretty good this way. And I'm just using glycol, antifreeze, and pretty straightforward. It looks like a disaster, but that's because this is all temporary. I'm building a wall right here. So there's going to be a wall right here, and then these are going to be venting into the head, actually. So I didn't want to do any of the permanent affixations of the tubing and then attaching it everywhere. This is all just super temporary, so I could just test it, run the lines, and make sure it's not leaking. And this is the receiving side, so intake, outtake, return, and I did the same on the pickup coil for the motor. So basically, that piece in behind is a copper tubing bending through a piece of an aluminum, and then there's some silicone high temperature transfer grease in between the controller and that pickup plate. So it transfers the heat, it gets hot, and it sends it through the tube and out the radiator, and that's what keeps the controller cool. And I took it out of here. I had it on the back of this aluminum plate here before, but every time I wanted to go back to look in behind at the stuffing box, do any kind of investigations or work anywhere, I had the tubes sticking out, and I just didn't like that. So yeah, I'm gonna keep it open, that way I can put my hand on it and then look over whatever I need to do down here, or work on my batteries or anything like that. I don't have to worry about breaking the hoses. And right now, those 2 pumps and 6 fans, and then all of my electronics in the boat right now is running 75, 80 watts. I've got 11 watts coming in from the sun, and I've got 80 watts going out with the DC, so net 101 watts, 1.9 amps, and you can see I'm at 40 volts, so that would be the equivalent of 7 off, so that would be 7.3 amps at 12 volts, somewhere around there. Yeah, I checked both sides of the coupler here with the meter, and the motor side's okay. It's like pretty tight, but my shaft side was out 12,000. It was way out of tolerance. Has to be less than 5. Yeah, and while this was going on, we had a total solar eclipse. Managed to catch that.
It's over, you guys. It's done.
You can't see it?
No, you can't see it anymore. The cloud covered it.
Mom, you don't gotta give us a push.
Hey, I see it, yeah.
It's just orange, kind of cloudy, because there's clouds in the way, eh?
There it is. You see it, Dan, finally?
Yeah, I'm shooting a video.
That's cool.
Wow.
It's partially covered.
Yeah.
It's not even dark. So cool, look, it's literally a circle. Yeah, the street light.
The moon is perfectly.
What is that? Oh, that's a street light. Okay.
It's a street light.
I thought it was
Is that amazing how
Look
dark
how
it
dark
is?
it is. That is incredible.
Hey everybody, so this is my get up here for trying to check the trueness of the drive shaft. This is a dial gauge, and what you do is you spin, it's got a spring on it, and essentially you put it on top of the propeller shaft and you rotate it, and you can see the gauge moving up and down a little bit. That's actually the flex or the bend in the shaft, and I guess you want 0, but up to about 5 either way. So mine's about 3 to 4. On some spots it touches 5, and then basically I'm just using some bearings to test it. Yeah, that's like 3 there. And then I've been checking all the way along the shaft to see, well, what's... And then what I've been doing is I've been using the dial gauge on different spots on this bar to basically try to check the trueness of the propeller shaft at all the different points. But I've taken the time to put it through the tube bender, and just basically using a pen to mark where the high spots are. Like right here is the high spot on this side. I don't even know if that's enough. Like, to me, it's not even enough to. There's too much jiggle or marks on the shaft that are throwing off the gauge. It's very sensitive. So essentially, I've been just doing this to try to get the shaft as straight as possible, and then using the tube bender to just find where the high spot is, and then just put a little pressure on it, roll it back and forth, and then take it out, test it again. It's been very time consuming to do this. I've been at it probably about 4 hours, and I got it to the point where I think that it's going to be as straight, like it's straighter than it was. It was already pretty good, but what I did is when I marked, just looking down at the shaft here, so this was out 12 thousandths, 11 thousandths, 11th, 8, 8, 6, and then it got down to like 4 down at the other end. So this end here was pretty straight where the propeller is, and then this end here got a little bit worse. It was about a bit of a bow right here at this part. And then I found that kind of down here at the end I started marking, but I had 4 here, so it was pretty close right here, but then the very tip was a little bit off. So then I did another technique. I'll show you that. So then my other technique was to just turn it and then use my eyes to look for changes in thickness of the light underneath the propeller shaft. And I didn't see anything here, but I did see right on the tip. It's hard to see here without moving it, and then that thing is in the way, but it seems to be a lot about even now, as much as my eye can tell. Anyways, been a long day. I put it all together, the motor, and then I found that I had a bit of a wobble to it, and I wasn't 100% sure where it was coming from. And then I was talking to a friend Armando, and he's the one that lent me the dial gauge or the dial indicator. And then what I was able to do was testing it at different spots. I was able to find like some settings where I was tightening the bolts where it was worse, and some settings where it was better. And then that's what kind of led me to think, okay, well, it seemed to be worse at the coupler. So right where the coupler is, where it attaches to the very end, the jar flex coupler, that seemed to be the worst. And it was like a little bit out of alignment. And I said, well, this has always been in alignment, so I don't know if I just, was working on it and it bent a little bit, or, I know I spent some time in the fall doing this, and it just seems like I was close, but I couldn't quite find the sweet spot. And then the effect on it was that the noise in the motor was hitting the bearing, and the bearing was trying to move with the slight bend in the propeller shaft. So basically, the faster you went, you could hear it like a knocking. So sorry for all the shaky video there. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up just I pulled the whole thing apart, pulled the shaft out. I go in the water in a couple weeks, so I said, well, I better do that now than later. So so I just want to say thanks, Armando, for loaning me the dial indicator. That thing here was we were, what do you call it? It takes the trial and error out. Like, you still got to tweak it a little bit, but it was a really helpful tool to be able to figure that out. So I really appreciate that. Thumbs up. Yeah, you know what? I put a big effort into it, but even putting it back together, it still had this wobble sound. You can hear it here, and that little wobble is the smooth is the bend on the very tips, both the propeller side and the coupler side. Yeah, so I crossed my fingers and launched, and subsequently got disappointed. Pico de gallo sounds good.
Because I even have coriander growing up in the garden.
Is the coriander already sprouted? I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's like 6 inches tall
Oh wow, already.
in the garden.
It's amazing.
I have a big patch. Looks like a drill or
Pile driver. Yeah, if you look closely there at the brake disc, you can see the wobble. There's absolutely no wobble on the shaft. The stuffing box isn't moving at all. Everything's super aligned on the shaft. It's just the tips. And higher RPM, you can hear it clicking there. Tick, 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 tick. And if you look really close, you can see it wobbling here on the tip. The other side of it at the bearing is not vibrating at all, but that little bit of vibration, I'm sure, is going to kill it, especially on a long motoring voyage. So that's why I decided to pull the boat out of the water. If you can see that steam coming off the pavement, it's interesting. The storm is just blowing past, and so I noticed this. It was interesting. Basically, the rain came down, and it's evaporating on the pavement because it's so hot. Yeah, I'm at the dock. Oh, like you can see out there. I'm gonna go show you what it's like outside. I'm telling you, I'm getting like seasick just here in the dock. This is the temporary dock. I don't know if I can put this in a solid spot. So it's just unreal how much waves there are. They must be just coming in exactly the right way. Like, look, I got splashes. Oh, here it comes, big wave. This is just nuts. I had to tie the boat back because I was worried about this front hitting the dock. I've never seen it bounce this much before. Yeah, it's an adventure here today. Well, I think he lost his rope. Don't think it's supposed to look like that. Oh, look at that, the rope sheared right off. I'll go save his boat. Looks like his line snapped, and he didn't put any mid line on. So I just tied that one back, gave it a bit of a can kind of slide a little bit in there, and then I tied it to the mid cleat, and then I doubled up the one on the back too, so that it's got two lines everywhere now. It's pretty rough. Oh, so we gotta avoid the landmines. All out. taking her out. Amazing what the right leverage does. I barely even got this on. I got one half a wrench turn and the thing just popped right off. So this is a gear puller. It cracked it, whatever was stuck, and now I can get it off. Good looking prop. So this tool cost me $100, but this tool, the block of wood, that didn't work. Essentially, the block of wood, I was tapping on it, but it just was not. There was no leverage. There's a bit of give in the propeller, so when you hit it, the propeller's got a bit of movement to it, so it takes some of the shock out. But this tool here, the claw, their gear puller, that just puts a little bit of pressure right on the back, and it's just boom, out it came. So yeah, it was pretty impressive actually. Just half a turn and it popped off. Well, we took the time to do a road trip. I dropped off the whole assembly to Chris over at Kitech. And he's got a lot of historical knowledge of boats and making these things, so he was an invaluable resource. So in the meantime, yeah, we took a little trip to 9,000 kilometers, drove to the Continental Divide, Yellowstone, Grand Teton, just a whole bunch of parks all the way down to the Grand Canyon, and then drove back through Moab and the Rocky Mountains, and yeah, it was just amazing. Caught a rodeo. It was a great time.
But I lost you.
Okay.
Yes,
Oh, that's not gonna work.
Then he's out. How about it for your captain? Kicking things off with Scott Saga for
Yeah, that was an amazing trip. So when I got back, my new shaft was ready, and after discussion with Chris, we decided to increase it from 7/8 to 1 inch, which meant I had to change all of the packing seal. So I went with a packless one and a dripless seal, and then he actually tested out the new shaft, and he showed me the tolerance was inside of 2 thou on the whole shaft, which was amazing. So this is the new PSS shaft seal, and I've switched it out because I've got a new prop shaft. The new prop shaft is a 1 inch shaft, and it's basically my old one was 7/8 up here at the top, and but the shaft was kind of like grounded down. So my old shaft was 7/8 to about here, and then inside the stuffing box it went to 1 inch. So the shaft couldn't come this way; it would hit the stuffing box being 1 inch. But it wasn't necessary, and this is actually a little simpler to make, so it saved me a few dollars to be 1 inch. But because my shaft seal on the old one was a packing style, this one here is a packless shaft seal. So this is basically like a carbon end, and this is called the bellows here in the middle, and this goes on the stern tube, which is this back piece here. And then you can see that my shaft just sort of sits in the middle of it right now. So I'm kind of getting things realigned here right now. But I slipped this over the stern tube, and then I just basically tightened down the 2 clamps so it's nice and stiff. So this steel collar slips on top of the shaft all the way down, and it's got a couple of O-rings inside. and the O-rings on the inside are what stop the water from coming up the shaft. And then this basically spins along the shaft, so it's rotating, and the this side does not rotate. So then what happens is, over time, this is carbon, takes about an hour, they say. The collar makes a really tight groove right here on this face, and then it stops leaking. So it may leak like a little bit for the first hour. And you can see it says don't use grease or oil to slide this down the shaft, just use liquid soap. And that probably to protect the seals, I would imagine, inside here. So inside there, you can kind of see them. There's two grooves in the collar, and in those grooves is the O-rings. And the other thing that it said to do, just reading the instructions, is it says check your keyway and make sure that the keyway is doesn't have any burrs or anything that might cut the O-rings inside, and then these would leak, and it seems like it's fine. So basically they do give you as well a spare set of rings, which I thought was good. So I have a kind of like a spare kit that came with it, and it comes with the locking what do they call that, lock seal, or no, anyways, it's to stop a thread lock. Thank you. So that's it comes with a little bit of thread lock. These are the hex keys that you put inside the shaft seal, and a couple of spare O-rings. So I'm going to hang on to those, except I think what I'm going to do is I may put some Vaseline on those O-rings just so that they last in the heat. But anyways, that's what I'm up to. And I'm going to basically just get this installed. It's not that hard. Just got to go slow and don't smash anything. So that slides on down there. And then I just got to push this on. And I've got to push it about another half an inch to an inch. I'll need two hands for that. And the collar then slips over top down to there, and away we go. So I'm just trying to get my parts installed for fitting to make sure everything's going to fit, like I've got enough room, because I still have to put two collars here. Plus I've got two collars and the bearing, the brake, and the coupler. So there's lots that goes on there. So that's the new bearing on, two shaft collars, and then this one here, this collar has to get pushed 3/4 of an inch down still, but I don't want to do that until I have this mounting the bearing flange in place, because it's not straight yet, so I don't want to put any pressure on it. It needs to be up a bit. It'll be put up a bit as soon as I get the holes re-drilled, so I'm going to have to put them here, because this 1 inch bearing is slightly bigger than the 7/8, so the holes don't line up, of course. So I'm going to have to get this re-drilled for that bearing flange. All right, so with my plate on, you can look behind and you can see there's just enough room in there, and then I got to slide that the new shaft seal collar back 3/4 of an inch, so it looks like my collars and everything are just going to fit. All right, so this is the final setup of the collar. So the shaft collar is here. This is part of the jar coupler, which attaches to the other half on this motor. This is the brake. So you can see I've got about, it's hard to tell in there, but I'd say just about half an inch on each side. So I've got probably 1 inch clearance of space, room to work with. And the brake can slide over the keystone a little bit, and I'll be able to get this to bite. Anyways, I'm pretty happy with the shaft so far, and the new components, everything just slid on nicely. So thanks Chris over at Kitech Machine. Appreciate all the help with that. This is a long-term problem that I've had with the boat. I'm going to say ever since I've owned it. You know, kind of like managed to get some tolerance with the shake on different parts with the old shaft, like by putting the jar coupler in and stuff, just to take out any slight misalignments. But I'm feeling good about this now, so I think I can proceed with the motor installation and then getting this back online, and then I'll be able to my boat back in the water. That's the goal here. So when my old one had I think it was 12 thousandths of an inch out on both tips, the bar looked pretty good. So the straightening that I did during the winter, I straightened out the bar, you know, I'm gonna say relatively good. Everything looks like it's going to line up well. This is my dry fitting. So when I got the shaft made, I asked Chris if he could just make it 6 mil longer. And it's basically the width of the gap of the neoprene spider gear between the jar couplers. So now I should be able to just slide the coupler in. It's going to be nice and snug. I'll be able to not have to have a bit of a gap in there. Because when I had it together, I had about a 1/4 inch gap. So I should have it should be close enough now, and if I need a little bit more space, I can always put a washer here on these legs to pull it out just a little bit. But I don't think I'm going to have to. I think it's going to be perfect. And this is still adjustable, this half of the jar coupler, so I can still move that in and out a little bit. And the neoprene spider gear has a bit of give in it, so it can actually go over the shaft just slightly. So I've got a bit of room to work with there, and you know what, I'm pretty happy. I still got my brake on. Now I just got to decide whether or not I drill I tap some divots in for my shaft collars on my nice brand new shiny shaft. I guess the reason for that is those little hex nuts that screw into the shaft collars. When you put them in, like, they don't really bite into the thing, so it's just pressure. So the torque going back and forth, you know, can be quite a bit. It's 13 horsepower, but I don't know how many pounds, you know, that works out to. It's just like one little thing. That's why I decided to double up the collars. And yeah, so the strength, but if you put a little divot, so you just drill a little divot in the shaft for the hex screw to go in, well, then you've got some physical binding, a little bit more space than just a little point pressure. So I think that's what I'm going to end up doing is I have to drill the shaft a little bit to make a couple of divot points for the hex head to fit in. That way the bearing is stuck in the middle and it can't move backwards or forwards. So that's really where the energy, that's what stops it from going one way or the other. And Chris also noted that my bearing was already going on it. So it was because I had a slight wobble in there, you know, it was just putting a lot of undue pressure on it, and he could feel it grinding. So if you ever had a bearing go in your car, you can kind of tell when you go left or right in the front, if it's a front bearing, you can hear the sound change in the bearing. And so just, he's got a good ear, mechanical guy, so he was able to pick out that my bearing was actually going. That's probably where my noise was. I was hearing the tick, 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 tick with the bearings kind of shuffling, you know, as the thing was turning, because inside there's like little roller bearings. So either one's got destroyed or, you know, degraded or whatever. So what you got to do is you got to kind of align the shaft, make sure the shaft is really tightly aligned, and then you move the whole mount so that it's in the middle of the shaft. That's the order that you did, and that's not how I did it originally. I did it the other way. So what that ended up doing is it caused a bit of misalignment right at the jar coupler, and, you know, I had more vibration. So once I sorted that out, I was in much better shape. No movement at all. Straight. So that's what the notch looks like. I just put that little divot in the shaft with the drill for the key nuts that go into the shaft collars. And then I just sanded it down so that it'd be a nice slippery, like no burrs or anything. And then I just take my hex key, it back into here. You didn't see that very well, but now I've got a double lock and a double lock. So less chance of that shaft sliding along. Oh, making some progress slowly here. Got the plate in and I've got everything aligned. I've even got the couplers on the shaft now. Now I just got to get the motor in and tighten down. It's getting hot, I'm sweating, but I'm liking the way it's feeling. Everything looks good. I'm not seeing any shaking or anything, so it's looking really good. I'm really glad to have done this, even though I've lost 4 weeks sailing, but it's okay. Better to be in a better position for the long haul. Well, this was interesting. So I solved one of my problems. The prop side has zero shake, but there's just a slight amount of shake that's over on the motor side. So I discovered that my plate was off by 1/2 of a degree. So I ended up re-drilling my plate and redoing all the mounts. So it's got to be in the coupler. There's got to be slight misalignment right there. When I hold the motor down, the gasket is taking up the slack now. So I don't feel any vibration. Everything's very straight. So it's just this coupler here that's a little bit off. Pressure wash the algae off, there's little flakes come off. Hard to see here, but I had to work this alignment here again. So what I did is I got this little stick and then I kind of went over. And you can see I've got about 1 millimeter where that line is. And then I went all the way around and I've got about 1 millimeter what the line is. Millimeter. And then underneath. And that's how I have the shaft perfectly square with the mounting plate. So just looking at the mounting plate, I had it off by literally 1 millimeter. So what I did was, on these support brackets, I just bored out the whole one more size larger, so 5/16 I think, because it was 1/4 or maybe it was 3/8. I can't remember the size, but I just made it a little bit bigger, pushed it back 1 millimeter, and then now my distance from this is the same. And then what I did in behind, it's hard to see here, but that's too, yeah, you can almost see those are, so those are some shims. Maybe you can see this way, I don't know. Yeah, maybe this way. So there's some shims down there, and I had it was a little bit twisted, so just my manufacturing was not bang on. So I had to, the difference was the width of one of these washers. So that's how far off I was. So what I did is I used some washers basically to shim the plate this way, and then I had to re-drill the top and push the plate back to get the shaft is now square to the plate. And I'm hoping that that's the last little bit, but I did notice that it seems like there's no resistance here now, and I can even bring it up a little bit more, so that's good. So what I'm going to do now is I feel like I'm relatively square, So these here could be loosened and I can move this left or right, but I really don't need to. I think it's right in the dead center. I've got a little bit of play still in the bearing because I can loosen those 4 bolts in behind and I can move that flange housing around just a little bit. But my next task is to get this aligned with that. And it's close. What I did is I picked up a 3-inch long shaft coupler, 1 inch to 1 inch, and I just slid it on, and it slides on like the tips are meeting, but it gets difficult and then it gets easy when you get off. So it's not square, and I'm not sure yet what to do there. Essentially I had one washer here and the rest of the 3 were square on the plates, and as far as I could tell it was pretty damn square, but I didn't have this quite right. So it's quite possible there might have been a little bit of pressure on the bearing as it was turning. That would have been pushing into the jar coupler, which is maybe why I had some vibration. Like no more knocking, but I did have a bit of a vibration there. Yeah, so I launch tomorrow, so I'm just trying to get this last little bit done. The shaft itself was problematic before because the tip would have been wobbling like this on the tip by 12 thousandths of an inch, 12 1,000ths. So that's a fair amount. Your acceptable play is 4. So if you have a dial indicator, you can check your shaft, and you can see if you've got it square or not. So I basically have a new shaft now built up. Or replace the Chris over at Kitech machine helped put together a solution for me. They basically took my old shaft, built me a new one. They made it 6 millimeters longer, and then he changed it from 7/8 to 1 inch all the way, which is why I had to change the shaft seal for the shaft tube. So looking at it out from the outside, I could still go up a smidgen. So I might do that. It doesn't have to go up high. Basically, I drew some lines here before, and I think that if I just bring it up to that line where I had it before, so put a little pressure on the bottom, loosen these 4 bolts, slide it up a bit, but I'm going to do that after I get the motor back on. So first I'm going to do that. I'm going to carry on working on this. Been out of the water a month. I'm pretty I got some anxiety about that, but I think this was the right decision to go down the Erie Canal and motor 200 miles with the vibrations that I had, and it was a lot worse before. Like now I have a vibration, but it's pretty minor. Like I'm sure it's fine, but I just trying to make it so that it's smooth. This is like it's finicky getting everything perfectly straight. That's where I'm spending the most time. I'm really close, so I think with just a little finagling here, I think I'll be all right. So I'm going to keep at her. And like I said, eventually you get it, right? I cut it out while I was working on it. And that's basically just to give it a bit of support and then take the pressure off. And now all the vibrations in here. But this is looking really good. I don't have any vibrations here at all anymore. Before it was almost 2 millimeters bouncing around, so this is pretty good. I'm gonna go with this. Well, I'm gonna call this a win. I think that all of my adjustments, this is looking way better. All right, I'm gonna stop that. I think I'm gonna call that a go. This is way better. No noises. Sounds great. Super happy. No leaks. How you feeling about this, David? Motor's working?
Yeah, it's working.
Sounds better? No more pain and misery?
Yeah.
Vibrations, noise. We're just going to do a little sail and bring it basically over into the marina down at that end of the harbor. And just enjoying the sails. It's been so long.